Hey folks, it's Wacky Tabacky here with another Wacky Tabacky walk. I'm in Conservatory Garden and welcome my guest, filmmaker and comic Aric Grooms.
How you doing?
Hey Aric.
Hey.
Thanks for taking the walk. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Let's go. So, filmmaker and comic Aric Grooms.
I guess that's me.
You have a movie called, we'll get to your backstory in a little bit.
Sure.
But you have a movie called Midlife that's out now.
Midlife, we actually premiered it to the cast and crew in October.
Uh-huh.
And we began our festival submission shortly after that. So, we've now starting to hear back people's answers, which is great.
Tell me about the story of Midlife. What's it about?
Well, Midlife, it's about what you go through when you're at the middle parts of your life. Hence the name. That was something it came to me a while back. And it's really about the emotions that a man has when he's nearing 50 years old.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people think midlife crises happen throughout your life, and maybe at 40 you have a midlife crisis. And people ask me the difference between what happens at 50 versus what happens at 40. You're aware of your mortality when you're 40, but you hear a clock ticking when you're 50. So everything ratchets up.
I definitely agree with that.
Right.
Someone at that age.
Well, it's just that your time's limited. It's something you see things. I've had friends that have passed away in the last 10 years. A lot of things are different at 50 than they were at 40.
Absolutely.
So one of the things, really the key element of the film is about relationship between a man and his father. That's really what the film ends up centering around. And you want to have that acceptance. And a man my age, especially a white man, or I don't know if it's a race thing, a man who's 50 now is raised by a father who's between 70 and 80 years old. Those fathers had different expectations. They had different roles than we have as fathers today.
Mm-hmm.
So the way they treated us as kids was not the same as I treat my kids. But that effect, you want your dad to be proud of you, even though your dad's probably never going to say he's proud of you,
right.
Or very rarely. You're going to want your dad to hear him say, "I love you," without being prompted. And that generation's father probably isn't going to as much. So I found there was a shared feeling among a lot of people my age that their fathers, they were good men, they worked hard, they provided, but they didn't provide that emotional support maybe that we have. So that's really what the film was about. And then other aspects of being at that age with relationships, both those in the past that you've messed up, those happening now that you never want to see go away, working in your career, life changes, the world changes, and how you deal with those aspects of life that you're thrust into a different career.
I feel you touched on a lot of those themes throughout the film, which was well done.
Well, the relationships and the character.
Now we're in Conservatory Garden, and the
There we
reason
are.
why is because you shot one of the scenes of Midlife here at this beautiful public garden here in Central Park. Which is one of the great gardens I think in the world.
I live, I live just across the park from here, and it's. I think it's the most overlooked, underappreciated spot in all of Manhattan.
Yep.
It's gorgeous and very quiet. And as you know, we shot during the pandemic. I wasn't sure we were going to be able to do anything. As you said, I was a comic, and that's what I was doing more of before the pandemic. But when they shut the stages down, filming a movie was something that, for whatever reason, was easier to do than doing a comedy show. Because there was no one here. We got no flack from anyone. We shot our short film, Remember Marie. Mm-hmm. We were able to go into parks and be outside.
By the way, before we continue on, this is a Vanderbilt gate.
Oh, yeah.
This gate actually came from the old Vanderbilt mansion on 58th and 5th.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yep, it's where Bergdorf Goodman is today.
Oh, wow.
And they demolished the mansion.
Okay.
Because a lot of mansions were being demolished around that part of town around the turn of the century. And Mrs. Vanderbilt, Mrs. Cornelius Vanderbilt, or Gertrude, I think was her name.
Gert.
She donated the gate to Central Park.
How cool.
And so that's been here ever since.
Would have not known that at all.
Turn of the century. Yeah, this is a beautiful garden, 3 formal gardens. You get the South Garden, the Central Garden, the North Garden, British, Italianate, and French. And you can get married here, take photographs here.
It's a great spot.
Great spot. And it's nice that you shot a romantic scene
Well,
here in the garden.
Yeah, we did. For for the film, like I said, we could actually be outside in a park like this without being bothered. Even the traffic would be much lighter back then, so we didn't have. We almost had what you would get with a big budget production, that you were able to get permits to shut streets down without having to pay for those, just because of nobody being around.
Right, so, kind of the beauty of shooting in New York City.
Well, yeah, especially at that time. So the parks were great, and we were just looking for spots that would make sure that people knew that this story was told in New York City, because there were some elements of it that needed to be clear that we were in New York City. And originally we wanted to make New York City even one of the characters of the film, and you know, we did that to as much as we could during the pandemic. It just got very difficult to find internal spaces, especially comedy club spaces, but the parks were easy to, were very easy to do. So
it's fair to say that Midlife was semi-autobiographical.
Yeah, and people have asked me that. It's you know, it's only autobiographical, and then I took some elements of some stories that really happened in my life, twisted some of the characters around in those stories, where some in the film it might be me, and this one appears in the film. Yeah, this is a bit. But it's not autobiographical in the sense that there's no children there. At the time of writing, I hadn't made a career change. I wasn't thrust into a career change. Ironically, during the pandemic, I had a day job that I was working. It was pretty lucrative and going very well, but the pandemic shut basically our company laid off half the field force, including. And
it wasn't advertising, right? Because in the movie.
In the movie, it's advertising.
Firm.
No, I did basically estate planning and pseudo legal work for charities, and I helped people when they passed away to leave money to charities. That's what my main job was, and it was very rewarding in many ways. But our charity raised most of its operating money through in-person walks and runs. So when they announced that all those were going to be canceled for the spring of 2020, they knew that they were going to run through their reserves. They had to make some drastic changes. So I did not write the film in anticipation of being thrust into a different career, but in hindsight, it's what happened for me. Is that things happen in life at my age with companies, that they change, and you end up finding yourself trying to figure out something else to do. So that industry's changed. I tried initially to find some jobs in that industry, and they just weren't as plentiful, and I can't move out of New York City right away.
We're stopping right here at 106th and 5th, and the bench here at the wall of Central Park. And this is where you have the scene with the girlfriend, and your wife comes by.
She does.
And we've got a clip of that, and I'll show you the clip right here.
Back on the days.
Whoa.
So I didn't
oh my
know
God.
Well, because
Brad?
Oh, hey, honey. What are you doing over here?
I'm meeting Deborah at the museum. What are you doing up here?
Scouting locations for the Rolex shoot. And this is Anita. She's working with us on the project.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Well, I guess I'll see you home.
Love you.
Love you too. Hey, don't go.
I just need a minute. I'll talk to you later.
I mean, like I said, it was a nice location. It was close to the restrooms for our crew, and we, it really was able with everything in this area. It gave you a lot of open space. It was obviously New York, but it gave Alexandra Lyon, who's the actress in that, and Gail Payne plays Liz, the wife. But it gave Alexandra and Gail a lot of room to explore and move, and we thought it was a good location spot. Like I said, though, very easy to get to, and I mean, it's not very busy here today on a January day, but this was in October of that year, and there were less people there then than there are now, so it was very easy to shoot.
By the way, this wall was made from granite. There was a lot of granite in Central Park that they had explosives. They blew up a lot of the bedrock called schist, Manhattan mica schist. They were very resourceful back in the mid-19th century. They recycled the schist and then built the wall that surrounds the entire perimeter of the park.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, we're going to go into the park because we're going to go to the west side. So let's get back in there, and we'll learn a little bit more about you.
Okay. There's the other where we shot the other scene where he gets caught, kind of red-handed.
In here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at that.
Yeah, it's kind of. It was one of the weirdest things. I hadn't kissed another woman for any reason since I met my wife.
Right.
Yeah. So.
But hey, that's acting, right?
You got to do what you got to do. But it was
Right.
so funny. There was another scene in the film where was a more passionate kiss, and we both were nervous. You know, she's such a lovely soul, Alexandra is, but we both got texts from our spouses while we're getting ready to shoot that scene, and they didn't know we were shooting that scene. I didn't tell, and she didn't tell, and
that was in here.
Yeah, in here, yeah. So Alexandra is just texting me, and she's like, she just looked at me and she goes, "They know, they know, don't they?" I'm like, "Yeah, they know, I guess." But if you can see the outtakes after that kiss, you'll see me dancing like, "I did it, I did it." It's pretty fun. But yeah, this is where we shot the scene here in this fountain.
Oh,
here.
this is the nicest of the three gardens.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, this is the French garden.
Yeah, the fountain was running. It was
And
such
the
a
fountain
beautiful.
is running, and then that's the that statue you see the three children playing is the Untermeyer fountain.
Okay.
And it's inspired by a French painting by Matisse.
Okay.
Of three children playing like Ring Around the Rosies, and it was donated in the 1930s.
Okay. Great.
I believe when this park was redone. It's
Yeah,
always been a conservatory here since the mid-19th century,
Wow.
but they redid it in the 30s to create the three parks
Yeah.
that you see.
It's really, really cool.
And this is a French-style garden.
But will you ever leave her? I'm not sure what else needs to happen for you to leave her.
I just need to get a few more things in order. It's close. Just a few more weeks. Can you trust me? Anita.
Yes, Brad, I can. I trust you.
So you didn't have a location scout.
Well, I was probably the location scout. We knew that the bulk of the film, though, was going to be shot at my apartment, and I have a house in the Catskills, so we filmed it up there. So we knew
Right.
that about at least 50% of the film is shot in those locations. Whenever I moved to New York, I was going through a divorce, and I didn't have any money, really. I had a decent job, but not much money.
Right.
So I ended up, that's how I spent my time, is walking around New York. So I knew New York really well. So I didn't start from scratch when it come to scouting my own locations, because I knew that, okay, if I can get into Battery Park and find a spot, I didn't anticipate the Battery Park would be totally empty during that time. We filmed like it was just like we had a permit. There was no one around. Even the park officials, the cops didn't bother us. In Battery Park, they weren't doing very many trips out to the Statue of Liberty. They may be running one every hour and a half. So we didn't have to deal with even the foghorns of the boats. So I knew that, and then the comedy clubs became hard because we couldn't get in them. The owners wouldn't let you in at that time, so that became harder than I thought it would. But we found the clubs that let us eventually, and got it all done.
Yeah, no, it was well done. I was really impressed. I went to the premiere
Yeah.
and saw the movie for the first time, and I was really impressed. Good acting. I really liked William English's portrayal of your father.
Bill is, I think he's not even a real person. I think he's a real person. I just think he's a really famous actor in England who's just come over here to mess with us.
That would be something
Like
else.
he's a retired guy that
He'll have to be next on the show.
he's such a, it was so weird too, because he is a talented actor, and he definitely in many ways stole the scenes that he was in, but he was such a good guy. Like, we filmed at the house upstate, so it was trash day, and I wake up in the morning and Bill is taking the trash to the curb. You know, he's dragging it up like, why is my lead actor taking
Getting
out my
into the
trash?
role. He's a method actor.
He was just
That's what
dragging.
dads do. Dads take out the
I
garbage.
guess, yeah.
is that?
That's for you.
Which one?
The car dummy.
Well, well, well. You know, I had one like that once. I sold it soon after you were born.
I know, Dad. I've heard the stories. I've seen your pictures. You think I wouldn't know that?
I don't know what you paid attention to.
Oh.
Well, this one's an automatic. Mine had 4 on the floor.
I guess I missed that detail. These are hard enough to find the way it is.
Oh, I bet.
Get in. Start it up.
Automatic. Oh, Lord.
Well, what do you think?
She is one of a kind, Laura. Wow, you got this for me. It had to set you back. Should you be spending money like this? Liz told me what happened.
Since when are you talking to Liz?
But she stops by to visit every now and then when she's seeing her sister up in Phoenicia. Just checking up on me, I guess. Reckon she only divorced you.
What do you mean she told you what happened?
At the company. How they let you go. Son, how in the hell did you manage to get fired from your own company?
They didn't fire me. I got by. Look, it doesn't matter. I can afford to do something nice for my dad.
Well, she is nice. We need to give her a name.
How about Liz?
Don't be silly. Let's call her Chrissy.
Why?
You let me worry about that.
Jim, did you know Brett started a stand-up comedy career?
Oh, Liz told me. You calling it a career now, son?
He's really good, and things are going very well for him.
Son, you damn near 50 years old. How in the hell do you expect to make any money doing that, just starting out at your age?
Why do you care? I'm having fun, starting to make money. You let me worry about that. You just enjoy your gift.
Well, it is a nice gift. I'll give you that.
Now, Bill was fantastic. Anna, you know, you didn't meet Anna. She wasn't at the premiere because she couldn't get back into the country, but she just won the Best Supporting Actress from the Oaks Film Festival in California. So I'm very proud of her. Yeah, she was. Those two were auditioned. The day they auditioned, was the day they got the role. It was just who they were when they walked in the room. I had to check myself with Bill. Anna I wasn't going to bend on. When Alexandra, I had considered her as well, but then the Anita character fit her, I think, really well. But
That's the blonde. That was the blonde.
blonde, yeah.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, so one of those two was going to be Lara, but in my mind, as soon as I saw Anna, she was Lara. But but Bill was such a nice guy. I couldn't. It was hard for me to cast him. I had to tell, Matt and Rob. I was like, I need you to look at this guy because I like him too much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be, blinded. Is he this good of an actor? Can he do this? And
We just passed the lowest point of Central Park.
what that
Which
is?
was that where we were down the hill just near the garden.
Oh, really?
Yep, that is the lowest part of Central Park. Used to be a location of a place called McGowan's Tavern, which was around during the Revolutionary times.
Okay.
And which is interesting because around here to the right is part of the highest point of Central Park, where
That's
we
the
have
fort,
Fort
yeah.
Clinton and Nutter's Battery, and they were forts that were used by the British during the Revolutionary War, and then the Americans during the War of 1812.
Huh.
Because it's a high point of the park. There's a high and low right next to each other.
Huh.
And also we
I
have
didn't
a
know that this
Harlem-
was the highest part.
It's not the highest point of Central Park, but it's a high point.
Okay.
The lowest point is there.
Oh, yeah.
And this was a road to get in from from the Bronx,
Okay.
Westchester area to Manhattan. And so this was a strategic area.
Okay.
And of course, there's the body of water there to the right called Harlem Mere. And of course, one of two skating rinks in Central Park.
Nope, it's not anymore.
Right, they're doing construction.
They were in the back.
Let's-
President Trump would have had that done on that. They took it away from him.
Good point. So let's learn a little bit about you.
Sure.
Aric Grooms, you're from Southern Ohio.
I am. I grew up in
Tell me a little about your life growing up.
I grew up in the country, way out in the middle of nowhere. The closest interstate to my house, even today, is about 45 miles. I think, well, probably about the closest interstate about 45 miles, which is still about an hour drive from where I grew up.
Uh-huh.
So we grew up very, very rural in Southern Ohio. My dad is he's a truck driver now. He's 78 years old.
Wow, you're still working.
He's still,
Wow.
he still drives an 18-wheeler on the road, like gone 2-3 weeks at a time. He's just an amazing, so very hard-working man. My mom was a stay-at-home mom when I was growing up, and she ended up getting a job later at the VA hospital and worked for there, and she just retired this past year.
Uh-huh.
2 siblings growing up, played sports, played basketball mostly and baseball some, and went off to college, was first in my class, valedictorian, so I went to,
No kidding.
yeah, I was going to be a doctor. I was in pre-med for 2 years, but then I felt like it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it, I was getting good grades and stuff, it's just to be a scientist, to be a doctor, you just got to spend so much time with research and being alone, and I don't want to be around people more, so I felt myself like being led into something that was more people-oriented. Mm-hmm. So the more I switched my major, like before my 3rd year, I switched my major at Ohio University to education, thinking if I was in teaching, I could coach and do all that. So I could, teach, coach, whatever. And but then I was big in the church, so kind of felt led to speak in front of people and be a preacher. So that's what I went. Switched colleges, went to Ohio Christian University, and transferred there to get a Christian ministries degree, which allowed me to be a pastor. And that's what I did early on. So
Interesting.
by the time I was 20, that's what I was doing.
When I hear the ministry to comedy, I think of Sam Kinison, the late great Sam Kinison.
I've heard that more times than I always. I loved it because you can find clips of him preaching before.
No kidding.
Yeah, and it's the same. It's the same delivery. Yeah, he's preaching the same way he did comedy.
So he's somewhat of a hero, mentor, or at least an admirer.
Yeah, I would say he's somebody I admired as an artist. And I think the thing about him, coming from a ministry background, because you are shackled by so many preconceptions of what people want from you. And I tell you, it can become just crippling. So knowing what Sam had to do in order to just do his art, to go from, preaching a Pentecostal type message of hellfire and brimstone into, having a penis in his butt when he died. You know what I mean? Like, just
different minds, schools of thought.
yeah. I mean, there's a very small separation, and if you want to look at it, I mean, I know a lot of preachers. I've known a bunch of them, and if you're a good preacher, you're creative. You're an artist. You really are. It's an art form. Good preaching is an art form, with as much as anything I've ever done. And most of the preachers I know that are great at it have their own personal demons to deal with, and their own. Yeah, just knowing what he had to go through to take that leap from being a preacher to saying the sick things that he thought. That's the thing. I think everybody, like I said, most preachers that are good that I know, they've had their own issues. They struggle with certain things because you have to. If you put yourself out and you're really pushing envelopes, you have your own things you deal with. So very, Sam was something that very inspirational for that one fact.
All, a little bit different, at least some of it. Grew up that way, believe what I believe. But I know religion can be confusing. All of them can. They can even lie to you. I remember when I was a kid, I was a little kid growing up in Southern Ohio, and my mom and dad drove me to Columbus, to Ohio Stadium, to watch Billy Graham, the great evangelist, preach, right? And up there stood Billy Graham. He was preaching this crowd. 100 and some thousand people were gathered. And he stood there and he's like, now if you look at a woman with lust in your heart, Jesus says you might as well go ahead and have sex with her. And I'm like, all right. It's hard to argue with the King of Kings on that one, They also told me when I was younger that we weren't supposed to drink liquor. You can't drink liquor and be a Christian, right? And I was like, what about Jesus? Water into wine. And my Sunday school teacher told me when I was 12 years old, that's because they didn't have Pepsi back then. Now, you tell me Jesus Christ can turn water into wine, but he can't invent Pepsi? They also told us we're supposed to have sex, right? Like we're supposed to have sex before marriage. Matter of fact, they told me that if I didn't have sex before marriage, or my wife didn't have sex before marriage, that on our wedding night, we would form a special bond that would last an eternity. Well, it turns out when we found out that night that having sex is so awesome, we decided to try to have sex with everyone else we could. I'm divorced now, so.
So you had to shift gears in a way you didn't, but in a way you did, right? I mean, you're still performing, quote unquote, in front of an audience, both ventures, both jobs.
Sure. One has a different message than the other, but one has different purpose than the other, but in a way they're similar.
You're just telling a story. That's what people ask me. Like you're storytelling. You're telling a story. If you're doing, and of course not all comics tell stories. Some just do flat, straight out jokes, or enter into a different realm, or take on a different persona. But I've always felt that my biggest strengths are in telling certain stories.
Right.
And with a film or with a good stand-up set, you're just taking an audience on a journey. You're helping them go someplace that they hadn't been before, things they haven't thought about before, or maybe that's what I'm hearing from this film. The Midlife. I get people, especially men, who are saying, "Man, you just made me think about my dad. You made me think I want these things. I don't want to be that kind of dad. I wish my dad was this way."
Well, it's good because then you're reaching the audience. You're making them feel.
And that's what you're doing. Yeah.
And that your job as a filmmaker, I think, was done. By the way, we're in the North Woods right now.
Yeah, this is actually pretty awesome.
Yeah. It doesn't even feel like we're in New York City, but we are.
We are right in the heart.
I think one of the intentions was to make this sort of feel like the Catskills,
like
or
the
Adirondacks.
Yeah, I've never been to the Adirondacks. I've driven to Canada, but I didn't go through that way. I went through the Finger Lakes to Buffalo. I didn't even go straight up 87.
So tell me about your. Then tell me about doing stand-up for the first time and your sort of attempts at it in the early time.
Well, it's weird because I was trained to stand up in front of people and speak. So that part was never was never an issue. Was like we have stage fright or anything like that, and be nervous. But I will tell you, stand-up comedy is the most difficult thing I've ever done, performance-wise. And there's so many reasons. Like even preaching, people say, "What's the difference?" Well, there are a few differences. One is you have a different crowd every week when you're doing stand-up. Preaching, you have the same crowd. Even if you're doing it at a different church, it's the same type of crowd.
Right.
It's the same people who expect the same. They're going to laugh at the same kind of jokes. They're going to respond to the same type of emotional.
You know
story.
your audience better.
Exactly. You never know
So
who's
it's a
going to
little
be
more predictable.
Never know. Especially in New York, because especially when tourists were here, you'd be in crowds where people didn't speak English. At least it wasn't their first language, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. But that was the biggest thing. Was the audience? The audience was different every week. Try to think of all the differences, but
By the way, we're passing a beautiful arch.
oh, that's gorgeous. Yeah.
Glen Span Arch, I think it's called.
Is it?
Yeah, made from stone.
This is a
part
good.
of the Northwoods is called the Ravine.
This is a good picture spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for me, it was like, and I'm glad I got into stand-up when I did, because I was farther enough away from my divorce where, I had dealt with a lot of the bitter feelings that you come from having your life change that way. The hurt, that all was behind me. I was in love again, ready to get married. So it was a good time for me to enter. So I was then able to talk about a lot more light-hearted subjects.
And so you felt a little more secure.
Yeah, I felt safe.
Emotionally,
especially. I felt like I was emotionally stable enough to not just get up there and talk.
That's interesting because there's so many concepts.
Yeah, comedy is fun, but honestly, stand-up comedy for me is kind of a placeholder until my real passion fleshes itself out. And that is slam poetry. What are you giggling about? You don't think I'm a slam poet? You don't. I appreciate you saying that. I'm not a slam poet, but I get booked on a lot of shows here in New York that have slam poetry, which isn't true either because I don't get booked on a lot of shows. But I have been booked on a few, and I was on this one at slam poetry, and they asked me to do something, so I thought, okay, I'll do it. So I'll do it for you tonight if you let me. I'll close with this, and I probably should close with this. There's nowhere to go but down from here after this. But here's my slam poetry. You guys ready? I need your energy now. I need you with me. I'll do your poetry slam, but it's going to be rough. Because you'll look at me and think I'm not struggled enough. That I'm too old, I'm too white. That I've got the face of a man who's never had to march for my rights. That my life has been nothing but one continuous avenue of green lights. There's things from my past you can't see. Like how my teachers all lied to me. They said I before E except after C. I think that's weird. And so does my neighbor Keith. And I'm sure there's more words than E than an I and a C around. With a quick Google search, they can be found, but who's got that kind of time? Because now white people hate Taylor Swift and black people hate Kanye West, and I'm trying to figure out why. All I know is you take an I and an E in the middle, you put a C, and then add cream, that's ice cream. And that's a good thing. State of New York, you've been amazing. Let's move on.
Like I said, we just wanted to create our own show brand that we had more control over. Gave us more legitimacy, we think, in the comedy community. It helped us, move up quicker, I think, than we otherwise would have as artists. And we do a good job. Robert does a great job. He books shows really well. He runs shows really well. Craig runs our behind-the-scenes stuff. And we all three find good venues to
Craig
perform.
Lautner,
Craig Lautner,
who's a comic and storyteller,
Greg's a great storyteller.
amongst other things.
He's great. He's a great.
I've seen him
person.
perform storytelling.
Yeah, he's a great storyteller, and a good joke writer too. He writes a lot of bad jokes. He's got 2 kids, teenagers. So
Right, so you can empathize with his
a little
jokes.
bit, yeah. We have his kids are younger, so he doesn't have the teenage, like the older teenage or younger adult.
Now you have 4 kids, right?
4 children, yes. 11
And
to 21.
11 to 21. And so, what's it like? I'm not a father, so I wouldn't know. What's it like being a dad of 4 kids? Dad / stepdad.
I saw a shirt years ago before I had my first child,
I was with my ex at the beach, and I saw this guy was like corralling, like he had like a bunch of kids, and he had a shirt on that said "Having kids." The shirt said "Having kids is like being pecked to death by a duck." That's probably is
We're gonna
accurate.
cross there.
Sure. I mean, they're amazing. You know, being obviously blending a family that was challenging in many ways, but also a real big blessing. You know, both. You know, I've been divorced. Obviously, my current wife has been divorced. So, and we have two broken homes, and to be able to, but our exes have done well. We have good relationships with them, with both of our exes. But my wife and I have been able to create a sense of, you know, security and home for our kids, and that's been a blessing. They get along. On our wedding day, the photographer told us that they couldn't tell which kid belonged to which parent.
Oh, that's great.
Because they just seemed, there was a genuine love.
It's funny how the kids take on the looks of the non-biological parent.
Yeah, it was, and just the mannerisms and the way they interacted with both of us. Like my daughters were with my wife, you know, because they got ready together before the wedding and all, and so the photographer saw them all four, I guess, interacting, and really wasn't sure which kid was the actual, you know, daughter of the
Right. By the way, not to interrupt you, but
sorry.
this right here at your left, this building, I don't know if you know, this was the original cancer hospital in New York.
Oh, was it? Okay.
New York Cancer Hospital, which today is called Sloan Kettering.
Okay.
So Sloan Kettering, the famous cancer hospital on the east side,
They don't know it now.
started here. No. This started in the 19th century, 1884.
Wow. Well,
This building.
I remember this building here.
They call it the castle.
What's
What's the comedy scene like in Southern Ohio? And it sort of goes back to what we were saying before. Your set's going to be different for a Southern Ohio audience than a New York audience. You got it.
Yeah, I mean,
I've got to think. Or do you think comedy's so universal that maybe it doesn't matter? What do you think?
Well, okay, I would say I'd probably choose different sets for here. But if I'm going to do a set, it's going to be pretty much the same here or there.
Right.
I may just choose not to. Now, that's me personally, because I may choose not to do a set that I would feel more comfortable doing if I understood the audience better and I knew who the audience was going to be. But no, I think they're pretty much the same. I don't change a whole lot. Again, if you don't like me, that's fine. I mean, I always say this: 70% of the people in the world didn't like Forrest Gump, right? As a movie, so
Sure.
Or no, 20%.
You can't please everybody.
Christian, you guys are way into that, I can tell. It's okay. I feel like I'm a good guy, right? I mean, that's what my religion does for me. It helps me be a good guy. It helps me treat my neighbor well, be good to my fellow man. And I feel like I am a good guy. I do drink a little bit, but I've never done drugs, not one time in my whole life. Not even smoked a joint. Never. I've never watched a pornographic video all the way to the end. So I think I'm a great Christian.
I just do what I'm doing, but I will say that there are things I have tried in Southern Ohio, knowing I can get away with it because I'm from there.
Right.
The comedy scene in Southern Ohio is fantastic. It's really run by a woman named Lori Graves, who's one of my best comedy friends. She was living about 40 minutes from Columbus, about 50 minutes from Dayton, Ohio, and she would go there and she would drive and do an open mic and, you know, drive 2-hour round trip just to get on stage for 10 minutes. And finally she's like, I guess can't do this very much longer. So she went to a couple of local places that she had worked at in the past in jobs, and created her own stages and her own rooms. And now I'd hazard a guess how many shows she's actually hosted.
Did you know that Richard Lewis went to Ohio State?
Richard Lewis did?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he apparently, I follow him on Twitter, and he's tweeted this, or it's on his website. He has not missed in a Buckeye football game since the time he was there in like the late 60s.
That's the one thing I know.
Every Saturday he watches the game. I don't know how this guy who's does comedy, I'm sure, every day, how he can see every game, but apparently he reserves time every Saturday in the fall to watch the Buckeyes play.
It's just 14 now, maybe 15 if you're due.
That's true.
15
Saturdays a year. Yeah.
But I could say that's the one thing that my family knows. That, I mean, I'm a Cincinnati Bengals fan, and if I can watch the Bengals game, I will. But I don't. My schedule doesn't run around the Bengals. But the Buckeyes, I don't miss Buckeyes. My daughter's at Ohio State. She's a senior there, so she's getting ready to graduate in May. Real proud of her.
Right. Which okay. Okay. Did she go to the games?
No.
No.
She never goes. I'll text her, hey, baby, it's game day. Yeah, I know, I hear him. I'm like, all right. She did, yeah, her first, well, even now, she doesn't live very far from the stadium.
So you got to see if you can meet Richard Lewis.
Yeah, that'd be
Who's
cool.
another famous Ohio comic.
Yeah,
Drew
okay.
Carey.
Drew's a Cleveland guy, yeah.
Yeah, he's a Cleveland guy, right?
Josh Sneed, I bought one of his shirts. He's a comedian in Cincinnati. He's been doing it for a long, long time. He's probably a few years younger than me, but he's close to my age. But he, bunch of specials, and you can hear him on Sirius all the time.
Yeah.
He started a company called Cincy Shirts, and they're all Cincinnati Reds or around Cincinnati. So I bought one of his shirts at the Reds game this summer.
Now, yeah, you wore those. Your character in Midlife was a Cincinnati fan as
Yeah,
well, and I like
brought
that.
I brought a lot of little Easter eggs there, like even a bunch of Bengals stuff. I'm not sure if I did any Reds in the film. But I had an Ohio State sweater on once, and then I also had a lot of I don't know if you saw it, but a lot of different friends of mine that run comedy shows or different types of shows will have their own T-shirts. So I wore those in the film as well, in different places.
That's why I was hoping, like, the father was in the movie was from upstate New York.
Yeah.
You should have made him from, like, Ohio
Well, we
or
had
West
that
Virginia.
conversation- We had that conversation. My grandpa was from Cincinnati, so that means that my dad was probably born in Southern Ohio, right?
Right.
So that's why he kept the accent and all that. So we
I
kind of talked
see.
to that through in development. How does that make sense if he's up there and he obviously talks? Because Bill, he's not going to get rid of that accent.
Yeah, he's got that.
He's
Was it
North Carolina.
Appalachian?
He's
No, okay, North Carolina. Okay.
Yeah, he's from.
When I would do double-decker chores on Gray Line, I would try to have a conversation with the customer, and I would try to guess what state they were from
Okay.
on their accent. And sometimes I was right, but because I know that every region has a distinct accent.
Yeah, even in the South, there are different Southern dialects.
Now, I was going to ask you, have you performed for a church audience? Stand-up, not the preaching.
No, I have.
You have.
Yeah,
And what was that experience like?
it was good. I enjoy it. There's not really. Again, it's people. And
Is there a Christian comedian community? Because I've seen, I've been to a few open mics, and I met a few.
Well, there's in New York City, a Christian in New York City is different than a Christian
Outside New York City.
Yeah, so there's great Christian comedians in this city. Jason Solomon's one of the best comedians I know, and Ashley Morris, who's been performing in the city for years, she's a believer. There's several.
Now, are there sets kind of religious and based, or is it kind of just universal?
Just universal.
Universal jokes.
I think that's the thing, because I did a show at a theater in Chillicothe. It's the oldest theater. It's a majestic theater. It's the oldest continuously working theater in the country, let's say.
Chillicothe?
Chillicothe, Ohio.
Ohio, okay.
Yeah, it's a majestic theater. So when I was a kid, it was a movie theater, so I was watching Rambo and Purple Rain and everything else there. But whenever I went and did this show, it was built as a Christian show, and so I had, I had people that I had radio call me and interview me, like the paper. Everybody interviewed me because I was coming back from New York City, and I'm a Christian comic. Matter of fact, I was walking on this street and I had this conversation. He said, "What's it like being a Christian
Deja
comic
vu.
in New York City?" And I said, Christian is a horrible adjective. It's a great noun to say I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus. I believe these things, right? And I try to take these things and help them guide my decisions in my life, my relationships. Versus, because when you label me as a Christian comedian, then you are automatically putting on your understanding of what it is to be a Christian. So if I don't live up to that standard, then I can't be a Christian comedian. So I hate the fact Christian comic. But, it's no different. Basically, I have some taglines of jokes I don't tell to a Christian audience because I just know them too well that there'll be people that be offended. And it's not about sex or anything. I don't have jokes like that anyway. It's just more about, there's one joke about, somebody dying of a heroin overdose, But,
Oh, that might be pushing the boundaries, but
it's in context. It's true. There's a lot of backstory to it. But I've not told that story. I didn't tell that story that night. Where I might, if I felt it in a comedy club, if I felt like I could get away with it, I'd do it here. People here don't like it either. But it's one of those jokes I throw in for the 5% who could appreciate a really dark thought. Right? So
sure, you're reaching somebody, even a religious audience. Not
I'm in Atlanta doing some stuff down there this weekend, and have you ever ridden a subway train in another city? It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. People are sitting like normal and just looking ahead, maybe reading a book, smiling on the way to work. It's the most shit ever. There's nothing going on at all. It's like the bridges of Madison County of mass transit in Atlanta. It's beautiful. And they got these rules. Don't drink, don't eat, don't smoke. And people are following those rules. It is absolutely amazing. We've got one rule on the subway in New York City. Don't beat the shit out of the driver. That's it. And then we don't even give a shit about the driver. We just got to get places. And if you mess with the driver, we're not going to get to those places. Also, don't lean on the doors. For whatever reason. Probably because if you fall out, we'll slow the train up and I'll still be late for my shit.
But no, I've done it. And again, it's more about you have to understand the people, the audience you're dealing with. Like, I remember one of the things I've noticed about synagogues, if there's a microphone in the synagogue, no one is ever going to let somebody talk into that microphone without someone going up and adjusting it, like moving it.
That's a very Jewish thing.
Yeah, I don't know why that was, but I noticed that from the time I started going to synagogue. So my wife had me do a set.
That's funny. That's funny.
Well, they wanted me to do a set at this synagogue retreat. So, and then like 5 people went up in front of me. And it's like, of course, there's kids, people singing, all kinds of different talents that were happening. And so they're like, here comes Aric. And everybody knew I was a professional comedian or whatever. So I went up and I just stood and the microphone was here because the kid had just sang. So I just stood up there and just started doing my set like this.
Yeah.
Without the microphone, thinking, because I knew, everyone in the room lost their minds. Like, oh no, you got to pick up, you got to move the mic, you got to move the mic. And I went, I know, I'm making fun of all you. And it was the same thing.
Yeah, my wife she's Jewish and I'm a Christian. And people ask me what the differences are between Jews and Christians, And Jesus, huge difference. But here's the difference between Jews and Christians. If a Jewish person doesn't like you, they disagree with you, they will tell you that they don't like you and disagree with you. And if a Christian doesn't like you and disagrees with you, they will tell everybody but you that they don't like you and they disagree with you. That's the truth.
So I did that. So again, knowing your audience, knowing what they do, but I always just don't cuss. I think that's the biggest thing.
In your wildest dreams when you were young, did you ever think you'd be into interfaith relationship?
No, I didn't know that was a
interfaith marriage.
You got to remember, I'm a very conservative Christian. So for us, an interfaith relationship could be marrying a Catholic.
Absolutely.
Right? Or marrying a Baptist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it isn't just a different religion. I didn't think that was possible because I didn't know it was even something that people did. And then when I moved to New York, I didn't think a Jewish person would want to even date me, you know what I mean, or whatever, let alone marry me. So
well, your odds are a little better here.
Finding out my second year on match.
But I find that very interesting that you were a pastor, you're a minister, and you married someone in the Jewish faith who's also a clergy, also on their second wet marriage. Just an interesting connection.
It wasn't. When we started dating, that's the thing. Even though she was Jewish, and I understood. That's the thing. A Christian understands Judaism, especially if you're trained in a college or a seminary, because Christianity is a culmination of the promise of the Messiah, right? So you learn everything about the Jewish culture because that's important, because that's how the disciples lived, right? That's people in the first century. They were all Jewish. All the first Christians were Jewish. So their traditions, their beliefs, all that was from a Jewish train. So you have to understand that, especially as a minister, because you're preaching. Most of your books of the Bible are the Old Testament. So you have to understand what that meant to those people who read it first, and that was important. So I understood a lot about her faith more so than she did about mine. Also understood that her faith is no danger to mine. Where many Jews see Christianity or any other faith as, like, one of the rabbis told me when we got married that I was finishing the job that Hitler started, which I thought was a lot of pressure.
You're a rabbi?
No, that's a lot of pressure. I can't live up to that, right? So it's that's so there's a different understanding. But the thing we did have is that I understood what it was like to minister to people, and that's where we connected. It was over that, not so much over the actual religion. She was married to a guy who was Jewish, but he didn't understand what it was like to minister. Not sure what happened. That hadn't.
He wasn't clergy.
No, not at all. So again, that's a lifestyle that I think helped me more so than if I was just a Christian who married a Jew. Because she still she interviews interfaith couples all the time, and to help them with the issues that are coming.
That's interesting. That's like her specialty.
It's becoming that, yeah, because there's very few people of her caliber that will do it. who can create, help him craft a service that would be meaningful for everyone in the room without compromising. One thing she doesn't do is she doesn't compromise the Jewish parts of it. Like some people want to do part Christian, part Jewish. She won't mix the rituals, but she'll help them find ways that they can, in the ceremony or in the day, make that meaningful, right?
Mm-hmm.
It isn't about just in the ceremony I have to have some Christian stuff, some Jewish stuff. It's more about I have to make this day mean something, be very valuable to both the bride and the groom,
Right.
and not first and foremost to the parents. So she's been doing that quite a bit and doing very well with that. For sure.
Your wife's name is?
Ayelet. A-Y-E-L-E-T.
Ayelet. Sounds Hebrew.
It's very, it's Israeli for baby deer, I guess. So,
Interesting.
yeah, it's I had never heard the name before, but since I met her, I've met several others now. Because
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it's a very common name in Israel.
Okay. All right. Well, this is Strauss Park.
Yeah.
This is the Strausses. I don't know if you knew this, but Isidore Strauss. Oh, the bench where you're.
That's our bench,
Yeah. Isidore Strauss. We'll get there in a minute. Isidore Strauss was on the Titanic.
Yeah. All right.
Isidore and his wife Strauss, and they went down with the ship. Yep, he was co-owner of Macy's with his brother and Nathan. And of course, women could exit on the lifeboats, but she chose not to. She chose to go down with the ship with her husband. So that's the ultimate romantic story, I think. And back to your movie, we had a scene here at Strauss Park.
We did.
Why don't you describe the scene?
I live a block from here, so... Well, I mean, the scene is very similar to the one we described where he gets caught. And that was on purpose, to where there was more to that scene when we first meet the ex-wife, because she's basically catching him sitting on a bench with another woman, right? And so even though they were divorced and there's water under that bridge, there's still that initial pain of, oh my gosh, I'm seeing my husband with another woman again. So to the fiance, it comes off as cold, but to him and her, to Brad and his ex-wife, there's a real history there that, okay, you caught me again, but, so that was done. So that was the scene, is that this is where she meets, the fiance meets the ex-wife, is what happens in this scene.
Gotcha.
Yeah, again,
So, you really liked it, huh?
I did. It was a blast. I mean, I had a meeting out of the palm of my hand.
Wow. I just can't see you doing that.
And are you going to do that, as a job?
I don't know. People thought I was good. Who knows?
Well, okay. When do you go pick up your dad's car?
Not for a month or two. I got some work to get done on it. I want it to be perfect before I get it.
That sounds good.
Liz?
Oh, hey, Brad.
Wait, that's your ex-wife?
How are you?
I'm good. Great, actually.
Oh, really? Deborah told me what happened with Danny and the company.
What'd she say? And what'd he say happened?
Nothing really, just that you two aren't working together anymore. This must be your fiancé. I've heard all about your spring wedding. Hawaii. How lovely.
This is Lara. Lara, this is Liz.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So, how is everyone?
You tell me. You talk to Mom more than I do.
It's true. She tends to call every month or so. Is your dad okay?
Yeah, I mean, he's still Dad.
Well, it was a pleasure meeting you, bumping into both of you, but I gotta head on my way. Nice meeting you, Lara. Good luck, you guys.
She seemed cold.
That's just her. Always the smartest person in the room. Always someplace else to go. Probably running late.
Yeah, Lewis Kent is your cinematographer, very talented.
He's a good young kid. Yeah, he's got a bright future ahead of him. We head to, actually this weekend, we were in Santa Monica Film Festival, which is it's like a 16-year-old film festival out there in California. They went to one day of in-person screenings though, which means now we're not screened in person. Like 3 of their films last year made it to the Oscar finals, or Oscar shortlists or whatever. So it's pretty prestigious to be involved there with your first feature. But we'll be screened online at Santa Monica Film Festival starting on Saturday for a week, and then we're heading to Louisiana. We're actually going to
Cinema on the Bayou Film Festival in Lafayette, Louisiana, at the end of this month. So like 5 of us are going down for sure. Hopefully some more people will decide to hang out with us. Yeah, it's been going pretty well. Yeah, he's got a bright future for sure.
Let's walk to your apartment. So, all right. So, what's next then for Aric Grooms and Aric Films? By the way, your name is not spelled E-R-I-C, but A-R-I-C. What's up with that?
Well, it took you this long to get to that point.
That's the first question, right?
Well, people see it. I deal with this about once a day if I interact with the public in any way. Because what happens is you'll see my name on a credit card, or I have to type it in or whatever.
Right.
So anyway, it's spelled A-R-I-C. The reason is my mom loved the name Aric, but she had an ex-boyfriend named Aric. So my dad made her change how it's spelled.
Uh-huh.
So that's what she picked.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And I'm the only person in the world with my first and last
Yeah.
name together.
Oh, no kidding.
There's no one else. No.
You Googled yourself.
Well, so that's why all my stuff is Aric Grooms, AricGrooms.com. Aric Grooms.
Yeah, that is a unique name.
Yeah. So I'm the only person in the world with the names together like that. So Mom was a marketing genius in the early 70s.
I like interesting names.
Yeah, so that's...
All right, so you have a new project in the works. It's called Don Sirloin. Tell me a little bit about that, Don Sirloin.
It's a project I'm working on with Paige Michelet, Holland Smith, and Allison McGuff, who were in my short film, Remember Marie. We're writing it as an episodic, so hoping we want to write it to pitch it. We've already shot a trailer for it. But we developed some really strong characters, and we're just finalizing certain elements of the story. So that's one thing we're working on. We want to, but it's set in Mexico, or in Arizona and Mexico. So we're able to, we want to shoot that. It's basically, I got the idea. I was in Mexico in Playa del Carmen, and there's a restaurant there called Don Sirloin. So I told my buddy.
That's a great name.
I told my buddy, call me Don Sirloin for the rest of the week. And he did. And I always say Don had a better week than Aric would have, right?
Right.
So that was the concept of what if you changed your name and you made a few different decisions and your life could totally change. So it's basically about a man who kind of has enough of his life in Arizona, and he runs down to Mexico for a little bit of time away, and ends up meeting these 3 younger women, and they unwittingly become members of the Mexican drug cartels, running guns back and forth between the U.S. and Mexico. So
wow, there's that 3 women scenario again.
Yeah, there's 3 of them, and we've written unique characters. They're just such phenomenal talents. I can't wait to see what happens. When we first started doing it, we were going to pitch it, but that was back before I knew how to make a movie and how to distribute one a little bit. So we may do that ourselves. We'll see. Also with Lewis, I'm working on one called Gone Astray. It's about a man whose wife has gone missing, but his girlfriend in high school also went missing. His girlfriend in high school was the daughter of the sheriff, and now it's deja vu all over again. They're thinking maybe this young man has something to do with it.
Is this a mystery? What genre is this?
This is a thriller.
A thriller?
Yeah, we're going to shoot it upstate, hopefully mostly.
Feature or short?
It's a feature, yeah. The script is almost done. It'll be done by the end of this month, and then we've already started some of the casting, and then we look to be filming that by the end of March, I think. So that'll be, and that one, we've learned how to make a movie quicker and cheaper, so we're looking forward to really seeing what this one can become. So both of those things are my biggest project. Don Sirloin's the one that I'm really excited about writing and doing stuff with.
Well, best of luck on these 2 projects.
Yeah, I'm happy about it. There's other stuff we're doing too, but these are the big ones.
All right. Aric Grooms.
Thanks for walking me home, man.
Thanks for taking the Wacky Tabacky walk.
It was awesome, man.
You've been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, you too.
And we'll be sure to look out for your shows and your films coming up in the near future.
All right, man. Good luck.
So I want to thank Aric Grooms, and I want to thank you for watching another episode of Wacky Tabacky Walk. We'll do another one shortly. Have a great day or night wherever you are.